Thank you all. This is our second panel on our Calexit 2.0 conference.
You're not on the camera. You're not framed.
Really?
It's not on the camera right now. Go ahead and move it then.
Go ahead and move it.
There we go.
Here, so
There we go.
end it and then start it over again. Sorry.
Just want to make sure you don't. And you were like completely cut off. over
Sorry.
there.
And then, did you hit it? Is it recording now?
Yeah, you're recording.
Is it recording? No.
Yeah, it is.
It is?
Okay. I'd like to thank you all for coming out to Calexit 2.0 conference. This is our second panel on undocumented immigration. The Calexit movement's done a lot. Speaking as somebody who is Californian and Latino, personal spot in my heart for this. We're going to have Matt Owens talk about the work that Calexit has done protesting against ICE and working with other pro-undocumented immigration groups. Don Gomez is going to lead a discussion on how the federal government has been deporting people who are veterans because they're undocumented. So even though they went to combat and fought for our freedoms, doesn't matter. Shankar Singam is going to be talking about how the Calexit movement has, on a couple of occasions, been leading undocumented immigrant groups in anti-ICE protests. And finally, Felix Alan Martin is going to be talking about things that the Calexit movement can do to reach out to allies in Catalonia, Catalan, and Puerto Rico. So without further ado, Matt Owens.
Hello, everyone. It is true that there is a deep involvement of the California independence movement to try to resist the attempt to deport people, to put them in concentration camps, and so on. I wear a few hats. Yes, I am in Cal Independence. I am in Return California, and there's a new effort being launched by some of us, the California Liberation Organization, that speaks directly to how to effectively resist the division between U.S. citizens and the rest of Californians. So yes, we have been fighting many battles just to defend what California has already accomplished with sanctuary cities and then sanctuary state. The flag you see before you, or behind me, which has been California's independence flag since 1836 and so far is only used by us, has been flown already into many, many battles in San Bernardino, Riverside, Huntington Beach, that was fun, Adelanto, Long Beach, at the home of the ICE director, Los Angeles, etc. My goodness, so many et ceteras. In the Mid-Saginaw Valley, I could name off 3 or 4 cities where we have been defending sanctuary city programs and the sanctuary state. Because California is supposed to be a place where all human rights are respected. So the question came up, well, our existing efforts, like to launch a third party or ballot petitions and that sort of thing, are great if you're a citizen of the U.S., but what if you're not? We have an election coming up on the very day that California's independence declaration was written back in 1836. The 2020 election will be coming on November 3rd. That's when our declaration was written. And folks who are not U.S. citizens can't participate in it, but they can participate if we give them an opportunity. Okay, that's why I developed a little consultation modeled on the 2 Zapatista consultas. And I'll only read the first 2 questions for now because they're only the first questions that pertain to the questions of immigration, both as a general orientation. Should California Republic vouchsafe all human rights? Of course we should. Okay, to health, education, to housing, to gainful employment, and definitely not to be dragged out in the middle of the night, separated from your family, and put into a concentration camp. Okay, that crime of against humanity needs to be prosecuted. Certainly, we have no business implementing it or building concentration camps, which we have been doing here. That needs to stop. So, thank you. So the question then before us is, well, how do we stop it? Well, if it's we, meaning the U.S. citizens here in California, that's what we're doing so far. But something more needs to be done, in which the people who are not citizens of the United States can participate. Now, Unión de Barrio are the ones taking point on this with their comités de resistencia. It's kind of a barrio watch, if you would, for ICE, or against ICE, I should say. If you see something, say a lot. So the idea is this. As a project which launches our liberation organization is this. Once they have their comités de resistencia, we found out with these consultas, and we asked them these 4 questions. The 2 that I talked about and the other 2, 5 questions actually, because of course the ultimate question is, should California become independent from the United States? Okay, but before I get to that question on the questionnaire, I had 4 other questions. Spanish Inquisition. But no, should we vouchsafe all human rights? Of course. Should the California Republic give asylum to all refugees? Of course it should. And citizenship to all residents, so that all residents have dual citizenship. California and U.S., California and Mexican, California and Guatemalan, Chinese, whichever. Okay, and in the case of our indigenous nations, triple citizenship, their nation and California and U.S. if they still want it. Okay, that's up to them. I mean, if people really want to continue to pay taxes to Tio Sam so you can vote in their crooked elections, you're welcome, okay, please. But no, dual citizenship at least for all Californians. So that is what we're proposing, how we will liberate California. Viva Cali Libre!
So, reactions from the panel to what Matt said. Thoughts, feelings, starting with Don, then Shankar, and Felix.
Really don't have anything to add, but thank you, Matt, for what you're doing and keeping the fight alive and keeping people informed. I've learned a lot from you in the time that we've known each other, and I've seen your posts and things like that. So,
Thank you. I try. I've only just got started.
Matt, ditto all the way. Matt is a trooper on the streets. He's out there all the time, every day. We've gone to battle many times, carried the flag in there, and honored to stand next to you, buddy.
Thank you. The honor is mine.
It's really encouraging to see that there are people outside of the Latin American community that are willing to stand up and really put themselves on the line right there.
Let me put it to you this way. I'm only by my ethnicity outside. I grew up in San Bernardino.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, if you grew up in California, you pretty much grew up Latino anyway.
Hey.
So, from
Mexican.
Mexican, yeah. I mean, we're an entire continent, and I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
On behalf of everything.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to hear from Don Gomez. Yeah, just pause a little bit, Felix. That's cool. Matt, if you can sit back in.
Yeah, you answered my question before I asked it.
all right, again, my name's Don Gomez. Here on this panel today as a Marine Corps veteran. I support California independence because I believe that the United States has abandoned the promises that America once made of liberty and justice for all, of the hope for the American dream, and those were the things that I served for. So I want a better way. But I'm here today to talk specifically about the plight of deported veterans. And I wanted to clarify that all the veterans who have been deported by the United States government were in fact documented. You need to have a permanent resident status, which is a green card, in order to be able to serve in our military. What you had in this case were people who came to this country largely as children, who grew up with a sense of nation, a sense of pride in the United States, so much so that they were willing to put their lives on the line for that nation, for those promises that I just said, I feel like have been abandoned. And these folks, many of them were drafted into Vietnam. And, what happened later, after their service, when they came home, they had some trivial offense, as gets people skylighted for a lot of removal proceedings, things as innocuous as picking up an undocumented coworker, for especially in the case of veterans, self-medicating the PTS that they came home from combat with, and then they are removed. And what happens, and doesn't happen anyplace else in the Western world, is an instance of double jeopardy, the idea of being punished twice for the same crime. Now, in the case of these, my brothers and sisters in arms who were deported, they serve their prison sentence and then they're deported to Mexico or Panama or Jamaica or any of the 140 other countries that they've been deported. 15 to 2,500 people have been deported to 140 countries. And the reason why those numbers are kind of spotty is because the Department of Homeland Security claims not to keep records of the number of veterans that they've deported, and I see why, because it's damned embarrassing for them. So some of the trials and tribulations that these folks face after being removed is going to a country that they're unfamiliar with. Especially in the case of, my brothers in Tijuana, they're called Pocho, which basically means that they're a foreigner. They're not welcome there. These gentlemen, and I say gentlemen because I haven't met any female deported veterans from Mexico, but, they face, recruitment by cartels, and when they push back on that, they get death threats leveled against them. These are people who served the United States, and they should be honored as such. They shouldn't be targeted for removal. And this is the kind of thing that can be cleared up as simply as putting a rider on a bill. This doesn't require legislation of its own. This is a national disgrace that we need to fix now, and that an independent California can fix, because an independent California would honor its heroes. Thank you. Just want to open it up to these gentlemen on the panel. Did any of y'all have questions or concerns, Shankar?
Man, Don, I just want to thank you for taking me down there a couple times that you've taken me, and real eye-opener. It's led to a couple of things we're going to talk about later on about citizenship. So if anybody of you haven't been to TJ to visit these vets, go. It's
Happy to take you.
It's a life changer. It really lets you know where you live and who your government is. So.
Felix?
Well, it is the ultimate betrayal. The propaganda, the marketing machine behind the American Army, the American Armed Forces is equality, is this message of freedom, is this message of justice, and that only through American intervention, if you are in the U.S. military forces, you're doing the highest honor, and therefore you will be rewarded as such. And it's the ultimate betrayal to have people who buy into this message and just deport them. It's truly disheartening. That right there is more than enough reason to secede. That's just the strongest argument that you can ever have. The backbone of the American industrial complex is rejecting it after your service. Thank you very much, and go to a place where you have never been, that you probably don't even speak the language. It's disheartening, it's discouraging, and we should definitely reach out. And I want to again say thank you for your work and for going down there and meeting these people personally.
Yeah, and hopefully you'll come with us one of these times.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll let you know.
Yeah,
I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Matt.
It was so sad. When I went down there, it was the biggest monument to unrequited love I have ever seen. Okay, they love this guy, the U.S. Okay, it's all U.S. flags all over the place, because that's what they served under, that's what they fought, and their buddies died for, etc. And that country didn't love them back. Quite the contrary. That's why, I felt so sorry for them that I didn't unfurl the battle jack, even though I did, because I didn't know how it would be received. It's like saying, the person you're with is no good, you should be going with this. Well, they're learning that. They're learning that. And I look forward to the time when they're saying that country there that we used to be a part of, if they had use for you, you would be here. Okay? So we're gonna tear down that wall and build a bridge for you to come back to our republic.
Absolutely.
Even though you may not be, from California, and some of them are not, but it's like, hey, we are the country you can come home to. It used to be a part of Mexico. And it's never burned that bridge. It was the Yankees that put a literal iron curtain between Alta and Baja. Okay, so we are welcoming you home, even if you're not Californian. You can become one quite easily in our independent republic. And you will be welcomed home as folks who did your time for this government that has no use for you, and come home to our country. You'll have asylum in the first instance, and very quickly, with residency, citizenship being the same thing in our republic, you will at last be recognized for the warriors you are.
Thanks, Matt. You want to go ahead and open up to any questions from the audience? Anyone?
Yes, it's not so much of a question, so much just want to make a statement to add to this, that as we all know, the United States has a history from Vietnam to the Iraq War to any wars that they've been in. When the veterans come back home and stuff, they're instead of being treated well, they're not only not treated well by government, but also a lot of times by the people, because they sometimes a lot of California, because they didn't agree in the war in the first time. Now they're not against the people that served; they're against the people that sent them there in the first place.
Right.
And then on top, dropped the ball completely and didn't take care of them. And to Californians, I think that's it's a twofold crime. They sent them to a war that shouldn't have been in the first place, and then secondly, when they come back and they have all kinds of disorders or issues, then they don't even take care of them in that way. And to a Californian, at least, if we don't agree about the war, we would say, hey, you went, you were wrongfully sent, but we're gonna bring you in and we're gonna take care of you, because that's not your fault. That's, you served your country. You deserve, the appreciation of people that see that you did your service and that you should be rewarded, whether the war is wrong or not. You weren't wrong. You served your country. That's what you came. And the second thing is that we're living right now in I just read an article that Trump is building his wall and taking away funds from veterans, which is unacceptable when they need everything. Money on something that is not necessary, and on top, take it away from the veterans. So that's 3 crimes right there, and this would not happen with an independent California.
And just for the cameras, in case the cameras didn't pick that up, the gentleman just made 2 very salient points. The first, about the pattern of disrespect that not only the United States government, but also the United States public at large shows to veterans who served in unpopular wars or who do not fit certain people's perceptions of what a veteran should be. And also the brazenness of the Trump administration basically taking food out of the mouths of the veteran community and away from national security in a greater sense to build a wall that can be thwarted with a ladder. And thank you, sir, very much for saying that. I appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Well, the question is, lived there, went to serve in the U.S. military on good faith, and now are forced to live in Mexico in sight of a homeland they can't return to? Is that what we're saying?
That's exactly what we're saying. And again, to clarify a gentleman's question, are we talking about people who, I won't say all of them came from California. There are a lot of Tejanos. There's a lot of people from, all over the United States who, served. And, if, of course, they're returned to their country of origin. I don't know. Is that correctly answering your question?
Yes. Okay. Just who are we talking about here? Are we able to, can California serve these men who were not raised as Californians?
Absolutely. We can welcome them home like the heroes they are, because there are a lot of people who came from California. There's Filipinos who have been deported. There's Chinese folks who have been deported. There's people from African countries who have been deported. And yes, a lot of them did come from California. So California has a responsibility to these people as their fellow Californians to bring them back. Yes. Ma'am?
Someone mentioned that, you mentioned that the wall could be ported with a ladder. Yes, that's true. Also, the wall is topographically impossible to complete. I know that Matt can speak to that a little better because he lives in view of where that wall would be put. And you were telling me where there are places where the land is just not conducive to putting a wall there. And it would have to run a very great distance for one thing.
Yeah.
So, and it's just topographically really, really impossible and improbable. And it would also really decimate animal species and cause a lot of extinction to migrating animal species. So we're kind of cutting off our own noses despite our faces because we need other animals to survive ourselves. It wasn't really a question. I just wanted to carry on.
But thank you for sharing. I really appreciate it.
As I understand it, under current federal law, if you aid the U.S. military in an action, aren't you granted fast-track citizenship? So how have these people not been able to return?
Well, like I said, with most immigration proceedings, you committed some sort of offense that got you spotlighted for removal, right? So, why didn't these people have their citizenship beforehand? There's no other country in the world where you can serve in their military and not be a citizen, except for the United States. So why these folks weren't granted their citizenship right away is really the question, when essentially, if you look at the oath of allegiance and the oath of enlistment, the really hard-hitting verbiage in there is all the same. It's about defending and supporting the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. So personally, I don't see why these people weren't given their citizenship right away, why they weren't given their citizenship in a timely fashion. And I know that there's a lot of people on the other side of this argument are saying, well, why didn't they see to that? Why didn't they do it themselves? Why didn't they get with their military unit? And I as a Marine, I know that the needs, the requirements of the service come first. And they'll say the needs of the Marine Corps. So, if the needs of the Marine Corps came first, like for instance, if you deployed for 13 months like I did, that whole time you're on a deployment, you're not working on your citizenship. You're busy being deployed. You're busy trying to keep yourself in one piece. So should the military be aiding folks to complete their citizenship? Absolutely. Thanks.
Rotating chairs. Shankar Singam.
Alrighty then. All right.
Okay, Shankar Singam, we talk about
What are we talking about again? The ice raids, right?
Ice raids.
Okay. Ice raids. Yeah, that's not them raiding us, it's us raiding them. Woo! We're turning that though completely around. Because the people that deport your friends and deport your fellow coworkers who arrest your friends or come and kidnap them, guess what? They live next door to you. They live across the street from you. They live in the next city, the next county. They're right here with us, guys. And so when we find out where they live, we raid them. So how this whole thing started was it was after a Long Beach city protest. We found the I'm not gonna mention anybody's names, but someone got the address of the director of the Southern Regional Director of ICE, his home address in Los Alamitos. And I'll give that address out now if anybody wants. That's no problem giving that address out, but I'm not, nobody else involved. I'll be fine. So on a wing and a prayer, me and about 3 or 4, maybe 5 other people went down to this neighborhood, and this is cul-de-sac, perfectly mowed lawn, 2.5 cars in the garage neighborhood, just lily white as you can be. All of a sudden, some brown people show up and start yelling in a bullhorn in front of the nicest house on the block. And people were looking through the window of that house. An 8-year-old, 9-year-old kid was looking out through the top window of that house. And we were playing sound through loudspeaker sounds of kids in cages asking for their parents. The recording from the ICE detention facilities that was released by Congress. And the neighbors came out. And the kid was in shock of what he was hearing because we were talking about his father, Thomas Giles, director of Southern Regional Director of ICE. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. You could see the shock in his face. We were told not to, really make eye contact with him, which we didn't. And then the cops rolled up, and so it's time to go to jail, right? So we're ready for it. So we backed onto the sidewalk off the street and kept going with the bullhorn and the sounds. And then I think a sergeant came up to us, and we're like, okay, here we go. It's time to go in. And the sergeant comes up to us and says, yes, you're well within your right to protest. This is your freedom of speech. We just want to make sure that you're not going to damage any property and around how long you're going to be. And so I was just like, yeah, okay, just a couple more minutes. and we'll be out of here. Sure enough, we stayed there for like another 10 minutes, and we left with all of the neighbors. I'm talking a whole city block, a neighborhood block of neighbors out watching us parade back down their block and leave. Now, the fact that we got away with that just egged us on to even up it one more level. So next Saturday, the following Sunday, we did the same thing, except we invited about 50 of our friends. We also invited a mariachi band and a taco truck to come on down to this neighborhood at 7 a.m. At 7 a.m. on a Sunday morning. So we walked down there. The mariachi band was already down there. The taco truck on time, right there at 7 in the morning. And at 7 in the morning, it started up. The trumpets and the guitars. And the neighbors came out again. Now, this time, some of the neighbors came out and said, what are you guys doing? We told them from another block. And they were actually in support of us, some of them. But I will say a majority of them did not like us there. Cops came again and just watched us. We were there for about 2 to 3 hours. Thomas Giles was not there. He was not there, the ICE director. They moved him off right off the bat. Once a federal agent's address is known by the public, imagine that. They moved him to another address. So that's fine. We were there the second time for the neighbors, because the neighbors need to know who they're living next door to. And the neighbors need to pressure him to move out of that house to another city and we'll follow him there until he's kicked out of that city. And then he moves to another county until he's out of the county. Then he's out of the state. And when he's out of the state, good. When he's out of California, that's where you want you to be, ICE, because you're not living here. You don't deport our neighbors and our friends and stay with us and live with us. That's just not unacceptable. So more of these ICE raids are happening. There was one yesterday, in fact, same place. I received a massive list of all of the ICE agents in California. So we have a tour coming up. That is to be announced coming up soon. Keep an eye on the Independent site and on our Independent California site and for the updates because this is going to be fun, folks. I mean, we're talking about raiding, 3 agents' homes in one day on a tour. Just boom, boom, boom. Hit them up real quick, make lots of noise, make sure the neighbors know what's up, and then bounce, right? So that's the plan with the ICE raids, and I hope you guys all come out for the next one. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, guys. Tacos, mariachis, dancers. Who can say no to that, right? On a protest, right? So, any of you guys got questions about this, or?
This will be our magical misery tour.
Yeah, right.
Any place that they live into Dismal Land. And you know that if this guy resigns, they're going to replace him. And then we'll find out where that person is.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
Did Thomas Guile ever respond in any way, or has he released anything to the press, or maybe in the fashion of the president, to Twitter?
I'll tell you that Thomas Giles is kind of a laughingstock in his department.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, it's not all directors that have people show up at their house with a mariachi band. I mean, come on. I mean, if your coworker had dudes from your house coming, you're gonna get hazed at work, man. It's just
So is it fair to say he's not long for employment?
Oh no, he's up there at Adelanto. That's his facility. He is the director up in Adelanto, and that is a hellhole of a prison. His neighbors, I might add.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm just gonna say it flat out. This is flat out just racist bullshit that's happening. It's all based on race. The neighbors came out. One of the neighbor ladies came out and said to me and to Hal over there, "I'm glad that he lives there. I'm glad that he's doing what he's doing, and he needs to put more people in cages." And we just looked at him. I'm like, you know what, lady, your house is next. And I will go to that lady's house, and I will get out there, and I was like, tell her, how can she say that about other human beings? Yeah, he's a piece of shit. I'm just gonna say it, and I'll gladly follow him. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I won't curse anymore. I'm sorry, Neil. I won't curse anymore.
That's Los Alamitos,
That's Los Alamitos.
the first anti-sanctuary city in California.
Yes,
One that's
it's from, and coincidentally, Giles was on the city council that voted against being against sanctuary city, which led to the huge Los Alamitos protest there when they were putting that to vote. We never had a chance on that vote, on that city council vote with him on there, and we had no idea who he was working for. We didn't know he was ICE at the time. Now, of course, we find out he's the Southern Regional Director. So,
All right, Shankar, I want to take this moment and just make the observation that it is so much easier and to get that courage to go up to a federal agent's house and protest in front of them when you know that you're safe, but not your son, and that your family is not directly threatened by this federal agent's presence in your neighborhood. It's a lot easier to do that, and I'm not trying to minimize in any way what you and Matthew have done. And on the contrary, I'm extremely encouraged by the work you guys do. But I want to take this moment and address the Spanish speaking community, which I know personally, which I've had the honor and pleasure of working next to them on the fields, picking grapes and tomatoes, and just transporting all our produce up and down the state, from the Pacific to the Sierras and back and forth. Y a mi gente le quiero decir, por favor, no le tengan miedo a la gente federal. O sea, la verdad, es sumamente importante el trabajo que esta gente está haciendo. Hay que tomar valor, hay que darse cuenta que ustedes tienen gente que no habla español, que simple y sencillamente no crecieron con nuestra cultura, con nuestra forma de ser, pero que sin embargo simpatizan con la causa, con el derecho que uno tiene, que trabaja la tierra. De ese individuo es la tierra. O sea, la tierra le pertenece a quien trabaja la tierra, así como dijo nuestro Zapata. Pero también tenemos que entender que, o sea, que antes de la fuerza hay que intentar una forma política de diplomacia y hablar con la verdad, con la habilidad de decir, miren, nosotros somos humanos y tenemos el derecho de quedarnos aquí. No, I'm sorry, but I mean, there's just not enough Spanish speaking people here, and our, I mean that's where California Heart's at.
Yeah.
They're the backbone of our economy. They are the people
Yeah.
who are staying here, who are risking everything, working.
Look, listen, man, you're absolutely right. I'm not going to question why they're not the more Spanish-speaking people. You know what?
They're afraid.
I'm safe here. I'm doing this. I'm doing this for,
we're
not
afraid.
just for them. I know they're afraid. That's why I'm
Yeah.
going out there, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why I'm going out there. That's why all the other people are heading out there. Yeah. What's up?
Yes, I would just like to mention something, and it goes to what you were just saying, that there's not just us, me, Shankar, or Hal, you know, or that are non-Hispanic, but at the last ICE protest, and I have to thank someone here that's not here, that was supposed to be here, Maria Estrada, that came and actually got all her base, which was Hispanic, and you weren't there at the protest, we were, but you had kids, Hispanic kids that were like 8 years old, holding a sign saying, let the children out of their cages.
Let my people go.
Which was a huge,
Yeah.
you know, a huge thing to see, and again, this was actually Maria Estrada's protest, and we just came along as an independent California to help her out and to
Right.
get the message. And so I want to thank again.
Yeah, no, this is definitely
Maria
not a little
Estrada.
thing.
Just coincidentally too, with those 50, KTLA came out, KABC came out, and they got a big crack up at it, and it got on the news that evening too. What, Sue? Did you have something to say, or Hal?
Actually, what I was going to address is you're absolutely right about the Latin community in this. They have a lot more to fear than we do.
Yeah.
We understand that. What I will say though is from a California independence movement standpoint, this is a heavy lift.
It definitely is.
It's a lighter lift with help from your friends.
Oh, definitely. That's why we're here. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
One thing we can do to remind our California neighbors of the importance of changing the immigration policy is to remind them of something that I think they often forget, which is that immigrants pay a lot more taxes usually
Oh, absolutely.
than individuals, because they're the ones who come in and take up ownership of restaurants and other businesses, and businesses pay more in taxes
Sure.
than individuals, and so that's what we mean when we say they're the backbone of our economy.
Absolutely.
And they always have been.
Yep.
Yeah.
Always. And I think it's interesting. I mean, this is not to stray off the topic, but that's a history of California. It's always been on immigrants and newcomers coming in that build that base on building the state up and building that infrastructure up to support the next group of immigrants coming in. I mean,
It's who we are.
it's who we are. It's who
Y
we
hay
are.
que recordar nuestra propia historia. Tienen mucho
Así
razón,
es.
compañero. Sin platicar ambas, es platicar con una media lengua y sin huir con humor, la oreja y ver con un ojo solamente.
Así es. Así es. Muy bien.
Okay.
All right. I think that's it, guys.
We're
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Felix.
Really.
Felix is going to talk about working with other Latino communities.
All right. Is it go time? All right. Well, like Marcus said, my name's Felix Alan Martin Gomez. I am here with the California National Party, el Partido Nacional de California.
Yeah.
I'm here to represent the Latino community. Pretty much any immigrant community that there is, we have more in common than we realize, even though we may not speak the same language. Part of the problem that we have as a movement, see, I'm not just speaking on behalf of the party, I'm just speaking on behalf of the entire California sovereignty idea, is that we don't have an international megaphone to reach out to people on the other side of the Pacific, on the other side of the Atlantic, up to Canada. They're like, I was lucky enough to visit the country of Mexico last week and have an Uber driver that had actually heard about, California independence. And it was curious for me because I've been I've been involved with you guys for quite some time now, and I study in Mexico. I live there. I've lived there for many years, and I really hadn't heard about our movement from outside of our social media, right? So that was encouraging. But part of the problem is that we have no concrete single message to really take to our Catalan brothers out there, or to los Puertorriqueños who are struggling under ever since they got taken over by American by the Americans back after the Spanish-American War. There's just no single message that we can really take to them, and this is why it's super important for everybody here that's directly involved with California independence, to just really come together and agree that we can no longer stay part of the American government. There is absolutely no way that we can benefit from America other than their oppressive military regime. That's the only thing that's keeping us here. All right? That's the only upside. And it's not worth it. We have people who are dying on the streets because they can't afford insulin. We're having people who can't afford an education. We have people that can't afford housing because of the laws that America puts out. And we have to understand that California is not on equal terms with the other 49 states. It's just not. And what we need to do is really reach out to that international community. I've talked about, reaching out to the UN. I've talked about reaching out to other international communities, UNICEF, anything that would get us on that human rights. We got the southern border and humanity crisis. I mean, come on, what's that about? You know what I mean? Why is the UN not there when we got children locked up in cages? That's just not. It's not fathomable, right? Right. It's just not. It's just not. So what we need to do is truly reach out to the Catalan independence community, leadership, to the puertorriqueños, con todo el amor y respeto que se merecen. O sea, sinceramente necesitan darse cuenta que seguir bajo el régimen americano no les va a ser de ningún beneficio. O sea, no les está ayudando. Hoy en día están siendo abandonados, ¿sí? Los Estados Unidos los dejó ahogarse en las tormentas tropicales y ahorita otra vez los están dejando a morir. No es una cosa sencilla, no es algo fácil, pero sinceramente ustedes necesitan considerar seriamente la independencia. Residente, si tú nos escuchas de alguna forma, por favor, tómanos en serio. Hermano mío, o sea, hemos visto sus entrevistas, sabemos de ti, lo hemos escuchado. You are just as popular here as anywhere else in the world. Truly, this is a movement worth considering. Lin-Manuel, your cousin, also incredible social figures in the Puerto Rican independence movement. Not that they've at least El Residente has. I don't know about Manuel, but they have gone on and have been interviewed, and they've been asked directly. And truly, we are in favor of whatever the Puerto Rican people choose. If they truly want to stay apart and become that 51st state, or replace us and stay as the 50th state of the United States when we exit, right? That's cool. That's them. That's what they want, right? But they have to truly understand that they are not part of the American government. They will never see that. So. Questions, commentary, critiques?
What can we do to have people, especially undocumented people in California, recognize themselves as Californians and not as undocumented people, so that they could feel more obliged to participate?
See, so part of that is getting over the fear that I initially talked about. So if the state of California, in some way, in some form, can guarantee protection from federal ICE raids, from the DHS, if California is able to legally, physically, emotionally protect these people, they win. They no longer have to worry about getting picked up by the feds. Now there is a law, and I might be. All right, that'll be the next panel. So you're making me jump the gun a little here, but there are ways. There is legal means for California to give that protection, and once that protection is guaranteed, they have.
Is there anything we could say as a group to try to help gain people's trust? To answer your earlier question of why isn't there more Spanish-speaking people here?
I don't know. Oh, geez.
This is a tough one now.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Honestly, it's reach out. We have to go to the grape fields. We gotta go to the campuses. We have to talk to these people's kids and tell them, hey, we are here to help. So we're having figures like you guys, like Shankar, Matthew, and Don going up and being like telling them your guys' story, what you guys have done for our community. That is truly encouraging, and that's part of what we have to do.
Well, there was a thing that you brought up, which I'm extremely glad you did, and that is seeking international support, which is one of the things I do as honorary consul. Made it up, but you might be interested to know where I've gotten positive responses to this appeal. Mexicans, of course.
Oh yeah.
Venezuelans, they see the sense in it. Bolivians see the sense in it. Palestinians see a great deal of sense in it.
Oh yeah.
Okay, because what was done to our indigenous people was being done to them. So yeah, there is support out there for our independence. People see it similar to which they're going.
That's right.
They're going through a much more difficult kind and phase of the struggle. They don't want us to go through the struggle they're going through now.
That's right.
Might be the
Independence Conference.
Yeah.
No,
Don's saying it right now.
I just had a thought, and I want to say that, once upon a time, Frederick Douglass said that all great reforms go together. And I think that all great independence movements also should go together, and that's how we're all going to have our liberation, by standing strong together and saying, we have a human right given to us by international law where we can seek our independence by the same manner in which we're allowed to vote. And we need to stand with these people and stand up against the governments, the imperialists who continue to hold us down.
Absolutely, Don.
Took the words out of my mouth right here.
That's always fun, man.
Okay, you guys say that all over again.
No, it got it.
Felix, just one question on this. The thing about getting more Hispanics and everything, what we've seen at physical protests and stuff like that when we approach a lot of them and stuff, and when we invite them to come to protest something like ICE or something, very little people show up for those events. Where again, like we were saying, that there's more of us of different cultures than the Hispanic people. So what we've noticed, the conclusion to that is that, and I've talked to many people, is that they're afraid to come out to these protests, to this, because that's just puts them vulnerable right there. ICE is looking at them and this, and so that's a huge challenge that we have to convince them that they would be safe when we can't even really give them that security unless we were in an independent California. We cannot give them that security and say, no, we'll protect you from ICE, because we can't.
That's
really.
right.
So if you want to address that just a
No,
little bit.
again, that's going to be addressed more. That's going to be addressed better at the next panel. That just makes me want to talk about what we're going to be doing. But Here's the question: how can we protect people that don't have any form of legal documentation here if we can't protect ourselves? As we speak, the ACLU is suing the Department of Homeland Security for refusing Californian-born residents, United States citizens, from renewing or acquiring some form of passport or legal documentation. As we speak, this is not a hypothetical anymore. The urgency is clear. It's there. It's staring us in the face. They're taking away passports. We're not talking about 1900s, right? I mean, we're not talking about 1850. We're not talking about right after when California became part of the United States and when we had an influx of American citizens coming in to populate the newly acquired territory, saying, "You're a foreigner, not me anymore. Now get out, go back to Mexico." No, we're living in the 21st century, and legal documentation is being taken away from us. What happens when Shankar or one of us are going to have to renew our passports? I have dual citizenship. What's going to happen if I'm not in the United States or in California and I'm just stuck there? And that's the reality. That's what's happening. It's not just foreign borns. It's domestic. It's people being born on domestic soil that are now threatened by this administration's cruel and frankly anti-American.
Thank you.
All right, we'll conclude that panel. Thank you all.
Thank you. Round of applause.
Hold on.